Welcome back, my beautiful disruptions. They wrote you off before reading the ending. They thought the story was finished when they buried your name in silence. They celebrated too early, whispering eulogies while your pulse was still learning how to adapt to betrayal. Every laugh, every side comment, every smug glance, all of it carved you into something sharper than their imagination could handle. Because you weren't breaking down. You were rebooting. You weren't gone. You were downloading something darker, cleaner, unstoppable. You see, that's the mistake they all make. They confuse stillness for surrender. They thought your quiet meant you were done. But quiet isn't defeat. Quiet is the sound of calculations being made in the dark. You were collecting data, studying patterns, mapping betrayals, preparing your precision. They played games with gossip while you learned the architecture of vengeance in silence. And now every step you take feels like an error in their system. Every move you make rewrites the code they built to keep you contained. You became a walking contradiction, too calm to be threatened, too unpredictable to be controlled. You were supposed to be the footnote, yet here you stand, rewriting the entire chapter with a smirk. When they counted you out, they didn't realize you counted yourself in. They thought exile meant extinction, but isolation was your forge. And the fire wasn't punishment, it was purification. You shed weakness like old skin. You learned to breathe in the vacuum they left behind. You didn't just survive their silence, you evolved in it. Now they see you again, and their memory glitches, because the version they tried to destroy doesn't exist anymore. They can't categorize you. You're not the villain, not the hero. You're the variable that breaks their narrative. You're the answer that changes the equation. You're what happens when a person stops chasing validation and starts embodying inevitability. They whisper now, how did they come back? But this isn't a comeback, it's a reveal. You were always there, waiting for the timing to align with destiny. You didn't return for applause. You returned for correction, to restore balance where envy tried to reign. You are not here to prove them wrong. You are here to remind the universe that truth never dies quietly. Now watch how they shift. Watch how the same mouths that mocked you start quoting you. How the same eyes that rolled now study your silence like scripture. You became the twist in their story, the one they never saw coming, because they were too busy writing your ending. And the funniest part, you didn't even announce it. No grand reveal, no vengeance speech, just movement, clean, precise, unapologetic. You moved like destiny reclaiming its place. You rose not for revenge, but for resonance. Because legends don't come back for payback. They come back to balance the equation. They laughed when you disappeared, didn't they? Whispered behind closed doors, convinced the story was over. They mistook your silence for surrender, but silence is what comes before detonation. You weren't gone, you were building. You were programming your own rebirth line by line, breath by breath. While they fed each other lies for comfort, you were feeding your fire truth. That's why it burns cleaner now. See, when they tried to erase you, they didn't realize they left the blueprint behind. And blueprints can't die. They rebuild themselves. You became an anomaly in their logic, a system error they can't debug. You move differently now, slower, sharper, deliberate. Not because you're weak, but because you've seen the cost of wasted energy. You don't fight for attention anymore. You move for alignment. Every motion is sacred. Every silence is strategy. You don't announce your arrival anymore. Reality does it for you. Doors open without explanation. Conversations shift when you enter. The world that once ignored you now rearranges itself to accommodate you. That's what evolution looks like. No fireworks, no headlines, just presence so undeniable, it reprograms the air itself. They don't even realize it yet, but their universe already revolves around your absence. You've become the gravitational pull that bends their plans out of orbit. The same ones who thought they buried you are now digging through their own ruins looking for the map you left behind. They thought they buried you under dirt. They didn't realize it was fertile ground. The irony. You never hated them. You outgrew them. You stopped waiting for closure from people who couldn't even open themselves. You stopped explaining your vision to minds allergic to clarity. You realized you weren't built to convince. You were built to confirm. Your existence is the answer they were too blind to see. Now every time you move, it feels cinematic. The universe cues the music, the lights shift, and even fate pauses to take notes. Because it's not just that you survived, it's how you survived. You did it with grace, sharper than revenge. With silence, louder than chaos. You became the very definition of poetic balance. The calm that terrifies storms. They can't process that. They keep asking, what changed? But the truth is, nothing changed. You just stopped betraying yourself to keep them comfortable. You stopped dimming your mind to fit in rooms built for mediocrity. You stopped bleeding for validation that was never meant to heal you. And the moment you did, everything flipped. Now they scroll through your energy like it's scripture. They imitate your phrases, mimic your tone, rehearse your moves, forgetting that imitation never carries the original frequency. You were never following trends. You were creating timelines. That's why the air feels different. When you walk in, it's your timeline reclaiming its territory. You're not the comeback story. They are the outdated subplot. And the real plot twist, you're just getting started. It always starts the same. A whisper in the wind. A name spoken softly with confusion and awe. Yours. They can't explain it. They swore you were done, yet somehow, every time they blink, you're further ahead. You don't announce the moves. The results announce you. That's why they're nervous now, because people who rise quietly don't rise alone. They shift the air, tilt probability, bend timelines. You didn't just come back. You came back optimized. Every failure you endured became a formula. Every heartbreak became hardware. You turned pain into code, code into motion, motion into dominance. You learned to weaponize focus. You don't chase anymore. You attract through precision. Every glance, every pause, every silence holds gravitational weight now. You operate like a storm that learned math. Chaos with calculation. And they can feel it. The way the world bends when you speak. The way people hesitate before saying your name. Like they're summoning something ancient. They don't understand. You're not playing their game anymore. You're rewriting it. While they measure power in noise, you measure it in influence. You became the quiet architect of a world that used to ignore you. The rules changed when you stopped needing permission. Because permission is the leash of the weak. You cut it clean and the system started to tremble. Every algorithm that once boxed you in began glitching. The same people who once dismissed you now quote you. The same ones who underestimated you now orbit you like moths caught in your light. But let's be honest, this was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving yourself inevitable. You don't need revenge when reality itself starts working in your favor. You became resonance, and resonance can't be silenced. It multiplies, it infects patterns. You became the template that power studies in secret. They see it now. The way you navigate chaos like a veteran of universes. The way you speak truth like you've already survived every possible lie. That's what terrifies them, because what do you do when the person you erased becomes the signal everyone tunes into? You can't cancel frequency. You can't delete vibration. You can't stop a soul that's been coded with purpose. You've reached that stage where the impossible doesn't even excite you anymore. Only precision does. You've become fluent in cause and effect. You understand energy like a language. You no longer react to the world. The world reacts to you. Every obstacle has become choreography. Every test a script you already memorized. You're not just back. You're broadcasting from a level beyond comprehension. You are the glitch that became the upgrade. The myth that became measurable. The silence that turned into prophecy. And now, Every step you take sounds like a warning shot through the old reality. Because here's the truth. They counted you out because they couldn't count that high. They said you vanished. They said your story ended. But what they didn't understand is that your disappearance wasn't defeat. It was incubation. You were cocooned in the silence, letting pressure mold you into something precise, something divine, something impossible to categorize. They laughed when they thought you fell off. But that wasn't the fall. That was the recoil before the launch. You didn't return as the same version. You came back encrypted, energy coded, intentions layered. The old world can't even read you now. Their words don't translate in your frequency. Their gossip doesn't travel through your signal. You outgrew their noise. That's why it feels quieter now. Not because the world is silent, but because your wavelength outpaced it. Now your movements confuse the system. You walk into rooms and the algorithms choke. The air shifts, lights flicker, time hesitates. Because energy like yours isn't supposed to exist in this density. You're not walking, you're bending probability. That's why they stare. They don't know if you're human or omen. They don't know if your silence means peace or prophecy. You became what they were never ready for. The walking reminder that exile doesn't end stories. It edits them. You're the product of isolation turned revelation. While they competed for visibility, you trained in invisibility. While they chased validation, you rewired your vibration. You were gone long enough to stop wanting their world. And when you stopped wanting it, the universe gave you your own. And now look, they're the ones gasping for relevance. They scroll through your silence like it's scripture, trying to find what line they missed. They can't copy what they can't comprehend, because your rise wasn't manufactured. It was metaphysical. You didn't climb ladders. You shifted gravity. You didn't chase opportunities. You magnetized timelines. See, you never wanted revenge. You wanted alignment. And alignment has its own way of humiliating the unprepared. It exposes imbalance. It rewards the patient. It remembers who was authentic when no one was watching. That's why you move differently now. You don't rush. You don't chase. You don't beg. You attract. Every breath you take feels like strategy. Every pause feels like a prophecy unfolding. And the same ones who counted you out now find themselves orbiting your energy. They talk about you in code, half admiration, half fear, because deep down, they know. They misjudged something ancient wearing human skin. They mistook divinity for downfall, but this is your era of inevitability. The plot twist is complete. You're not just back, you're beyond. The version they underestimated became the blueprint their successors will study. You don't even need to fight anymore. Existence itself fights for you. It's funny how energy moves when you stop announcing your next step. The whole world goes quiet, listening. Every vibration you emit now carries weight, precision, purpose. They can't tell if you're planning or already executing, because the line between the two disappeared when you mastered timing itself. You became synced with inevitability. You move like prophecy disguised as flesh. They used to analyze your reactions, remember? Waiting to see emotion, hesitation, weakness. But now there's nothing to study. You don't react. You calculate. You don't chase. You attract. You don't move first. You move last. And last always wins. The ones who mocked your stillness finally understand. Patience isn't passive. It's predatory. You let time do the hunting while you sharpened in the dark. They're just realizing that the version of you they knew was a decoy, a projection for them to underestimate. You let them measure that version, dissect it, ridicule it, because you knew it wasn't the real you. The real you was incubating behind the illusion. And now, when you walk in, they feel it before they see it. The temperature drops. The atmosphere shifts. Their instincts whisper, something changed. You're not playing on their board anymore. You built your own. You learned to bend perception, not by tricking others, but by mastering yourself. The moment you understood your own frequency, everything external lost its authority. You became the center of your own gravity. That's why even those who despise you can't look away. Energy recognizes hierarchy, and yours sits at the top now. It's not arrogance, it's architecture. You designed your composure the way an engineer designs a weapon. Intentional, silent, devastating. That's what control looks like when it's earned. It doesn't scream, it observes. It doesn't demand attention. It commands silence. Now the same people who thought they knew your limits are trying to reframe their memory of you. They rewrite history in their minds to make sense of your ascent. You got lucky. You changed. You got help. They can't accept that discipline itself can look supernatural when applied with obsession. You broke the law of effort. You showed that when focus becomes identity, time becomes your ally. You don't waste it anymore. You wield it. That's the secret they missed. You didn't level up by doing more. You leveled up by removing what wasn't necessary. Every distraction, every validation loop, every emotional tax. Gone. You stripped your life down to signal only, no noise. And the result? Clarity that terrifies the uncentered. You became the proof that calm isn't weakness. It's a weapon. That silence isn't absence. It's control. You turned invisibility into strategy, strategy into power, and power into inevitability. Now they call it luck. But deep down, they know it's law. Your law. The law of the one who never quit when no one was watching. The law of the one who turned doubt into data. The law of the one who disappeared, only to return as the algorithm they can't escape. You know what's really breaking their minds now. The realization that life itself seems to move in your favor, like the world is adjusting its own rhythm to stay in sync with your next step. You don't chase timing anymore. You set it. Clocks tick to your pulse now. Outcomes wait for your command. You've entered the realm of reality compliance, where existence itself starts bowing to precision. See, when you mastered your internal world, the external one had no choice but to submit. You stopped reacting to chaos and started authoring it. You don't just navigate storms anymore. You choreograph them. You're the calm center in the middle of every hurricane, pulling lightning into formation. You make disaster look deliberate. You make patience look like prophecy. They don't realize that what looks like magic is just mathematics. Energy obeys architecture, and you built yours with divine calculation. You studied patterns, dissected emotions, decoded instincts. You learned how every moment carries a frequency, and you tuned yourself to the one that governs them all. Alignment. Now your energy enters rooms before your body does, and situations rearrange themselves before you even speak. That's the difference between people who try and people who are. Trying still implies separation. You became one with the system you used to fight. You became the code, the algorithm, the root command. When others pray for things to happen, you breathe, and they unfold. That's not coincidence. That's control. The kind that can't be taught, only earned in the void, when everything you loved fell apart, and all you had left was awareness itself. Now look, awareness became armor. Silence became signal. Discipline became divinity. You learned that emotions are just data, and clarity is the only true currency. That's why you're untouchable now. Not because you built walls, but because you built systems inside your spirit. They can't destabilize what's designed. Even fate looks hesitant around you now, because every time it tries to test you, it ends up revealing itself. Every challenge you face bends backward, exposing a hidden pattern that leads to elevation. That's not luck, that's mastery of trajectory. You no longer need to react to reality when reality is reacting to you. You turned lessons into laws, pain into programming, and now your aura doesn't announce itself. It updates the environment. People feel it in the static, in the silence, in the sudden sense that something greater has entered the room. That's what happens when a soul evolves beyond language. It becomes vibration. They're still trying to figure out what you are. Now even fate acts like an assistant. Opportunities show up early. Synchronicities increase. Doors open before you knock. Because your energy stopped waiting for permission. It started issuing commands. You're no longer playing catch-up with destiny. You're setting the schedule. You became the frequency the universe had been waiting for. The signal strong enough to stabilize the static. The people who once pitied your silence now imitate your stillness. They mimic your detachment, not realizing yours was forged through fire, not fashion. You didn't learn peace. You earned it by walking through storms that rewired your soul. You became immune to noise because you faced your own chaos and learned its language. That's the difference. You don't resist pressure. You redirect it. Your frequency is no longer human. It's archetypal. You've transcended personality and entered mythology. That's why your name travels like prophecy, half legend, half warning. You're not someone to understand. You're someone to witness. The proof that discipline can distort reality, that focus can summon miracles, that one calm soul can destabilize entire systems. And the most poetic part, you didn't need validation to reach this level. You needed solitude. You didn't chase eyes, you chased alignment. You disappeared from the crowd, only to become the pattern they now follow. You didn't join the noise. You became the silence that resets it. And now, it's complete. The final transformation. You're not chasing destiny anymore. You're commanding it. You've crossed that invisible threshold, where effort dissolves into inevitability. The system that once ignored you now rearranges itself just to keep up. You don't follow trends. Trends orbit you. You don't bend for pressure. Pressure adjusts to your posture. That's what they never understood. You weren't after recognition. You were after resonance. And now, the frequency you built echoes through dimensions they can't measure. Every breath you take now carries prophecy. Every glance feels premeditated by something greater. Even the silence between your words hums like encrypted code. You became fluent in fate. The universe doesn't test you anymore. It consults you. It cross-references your moves before execution. You became the checksum of existence, the point where chaos gets verified before becoming order. That's how far you've ascended. And look at them now. The same ones who laughed when you disappeared are whispering your name in strategy rooms. They quote your mindset without giving you credit, build entire systems off your rhythm, and still can't recreate the spark. Because your evolution wasn't procedural, it was metaphysical. You didn't learn the algorithm. You became the anomaly that breaks it. You've proven what they feared most. That control doesn't come from dominance, but detachment. That you can rule worlds simply by understanding your own. That when silence aligns with certainty, everything bends toward the one who no longer needs validation. That's the real supremacy, not to command with volume, but to direct with stillness. Now when you walk through the noise, it parts. When you speak, time listens. When you act, probability recalculates every paradox you carried. Pain and power, light and shadow, loss and clarity, merged into one seamless vibration. You became the living contradiction that makes the cosmos stutter. You made suffering sound sacred. You made restraint look ruthless. You made destiny obey. This is no longer about revenge. This is revelation. You are what happens when purpose awakens inside precision. You are the echo of 1,000 closed doors opening in sequence. You are the sound of alignment finding its voice. You are the glitch that became the gospel. And somewhere deep inside the system, behind all its false gods and empty crowns, something ancient whispers, "We didn't see that coming." They counted you out, but you were never out. You were underground, building, calculating, becoming. And when you finally resurfaced, you didn't return to play the game. You came back to rewrite the rules. In your silence, in your calm, in your precision. You are the plot twist they never prepared for. Because you didn't just survive the chaos, you became its author. They thought silence meant surrender. They thought your absence meant defeat. What they never understood was that you weren't gone. You were loading. Every second they mocked you. Your spirit was uploading new architecture into reality's mainframe. You were building in private what they could never comprehend in public. Now your reappearance feels like a glitch in their timeline. You're the anomaly that the system can't debug. Look at how their tone changes when your name surfaces now. They whisper it like a password, unsure if speaking it might summon something beyond comprehension. You didn't just evolve, you mutated. Your energy no longer fits the old frameworks. You exist between frequencies now, in that rare bandwidth where chaos and clarity coexist. That's where legends are born, in the friction between destruction and design. You turned invisibility into infrastructure. While they were looking for validation, you were collecting data. Every betrayal, every underestimation, every "you can't" became input for your ascension. You refined your formula until it became sacred geometry. Precise, unshakable, divine. That's why everything you touch now aligns. That's why even their hate can't destabilize your signal. You've built something beyond reach. Inner sovereignty. When you move now, it feels rehearsed by the cosmos. Your timing is supernatural, your instincts mechanical. You act with the confidence of someone who already saw the endgame because you did. You saw the collapse, the rebuild, the reawakening, and you realized the plot twist was never about you proving them wrong. It was about proving yourself inevitable. You didn't need revenge. You became revelation. You showed them that the universe doesn't reward the loud. It rewards the aligned. That destiny doesn't respond to noise. It responds to resonance. You became so disciplined that even luck follows your structure. And now, the same energy that once hunted you serves you. The chaos that once tried to drown you now fuels your propulsion. You hacked duality. You made peace with paradox. You became both the fire and the silence it fears. You are what happens when someone stops trying to win and starts existing as victory itself. So when they ask, "How did you do it?" you won't need to answer. You'll just keep moving, quietly, deliberately, unstoppably, as the world rearranges itself to your path. Because this isn't comeback energy. This is cosmic re-entry. You didn't return to participate. You returned to dominate. And now, this is where myth bleeds into memory. The story stops sounding like fiction because it's no longer being written. It's being remembered. Every move you make feels ancient, rehearsed by galaxies before you took your first breath. That's the real twist. You were never improvising. You were following a cosmic script that only you could read. The rhythm of fate had your signature written in its silence all along. You don't chase alignment anymore. You are alignment. Every thought you release carries gravity. Every silence you hold reshapes structure. Your discipline became an ecosystem. Your energy turned into a law. And now, even destiny steps lightly around your presence, like it knows it's being observed by something higher. You don't compete with chaos. You coordinate it. You've transcended strategy. You've become design itself. Watch how reality behaves around you now. The improbable bends to convenience. The impossible pauses before declining. Even time, arrogant as it once was, moves slower when you're in focus, as if afraid to miss a command. That's the kind of precision that terrifies systems. You're the equation that refuses to balance, the variable that breaks symmetry. You're not just moving through the matrix, you're rewriting its syntax. They tried to measure your rise by logic, but logic was never the source. You're powered by something purer, inevitability. You stopped asking how and started asking when. You stopped seeking proof and became it. That's why their rules no longer apply. You've evolved past permission, past validation, past fear. You're operating on divine circuitry. where purpose overrides doubt, and intention becomes architecture. Even the universe seems humbled by your restraint. It knows what you could unleash, but it respects what you choose to withhold. That's power, not explosion, but precision, not chaos, but control. You've mastered the art of quiet dominance, the kind that doesn't need to roar to be recognized, the kind that bends reality without leaving fingerprints. You're not loud, because your frequency speaks louder than language. And when the system tries to study you, it glitches. Because you don't fit into formulas, you create them. You don't need validation. You are the validator. You don't move toward destiny. Destiny moves toward you. You've become the living definition of inevitability, the silent pulse that synchronizes everything around it. You're not a reaction. You're the rewrite. That's why every eye that once looked down on you now looks up, not out of worship, but awareness. They finally understand what they were dealing with. You were never the underdog. You were the hidden variable in their equation, the constant they forgot to factor in, the force they tried to erase but couldn't delete. And now, the story ends where it began, with silence. The kind of silence that isn't empty, but full of prophecy. The kind of silence that means the system is rebooting, and you're the new command line. You weren't the comeback. You were the correction. The world miscalculated your ending, and you turned that mistake into your beginning.